Hey everyone, welcome to episode 130 of Tuesdays with Perry. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to get Perry on the line right now. Going to have a bit of a potluck. I'm going to talk about a few stories. The DC January 6th pipe bomber, obviously. We'll start with that. We'll see where the evening takes us. All right, let's see if we can't get him on the line. Hey, Perry. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, Rudy, I was beginning to think you didn't love me anymore.
Not so much. It has been some time. I've been working on my new tech here. A couple upgrades that I'm happy to share.
I've been working. Your phone's cutting out again.
Oh, is it? Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Let's see.
Rudy?
Yeah, let's see if we can.
You've been working on stuff, but
not my phone. Let me
see gremlins in the machine.
Let me know if
they don't. There you are. Okay.
Yeah, I just sometimes I have to get the phone closer to the router, and the only problem with tonight is because it's night, everybody is on the internet, and so I'm running on low bandwidth here. But you can hear me okay now?
Now you're crystal clear.
All right, awesome. So let's get into the DC pipe bomber. So right after the blaze does this study and figures out that it is a female Capitol police officer. Now, 2 weeks later, they find out it's this other guy who's a black autistic kid who started buying the pipe bomb parts well in advance, 6 years in advance, supposedly, before the attack.
Well, maybe we should rename him Nostradamus for being able to predict the outcome of the 2020 election. Since he would have started to acquire all these things in advance of what took place in November of 2020. Look, as I've mentioned on more than one occasion on your show, I have a very dear friend who has an adult son. He's in his mid-20s, very high on the spectrum. You'd have to really pay attention to him in conversation to know that he is autistic is a strong word. Yeah, the word that people use is Asperger's. And for this young man, who everyone seems to say is a wonderful person, suddenly take it upon himself. Again, we're talking about someone who is autistic. Their brain is hardwired differently than ours, and they perceive things differently than the average person does, especially when it comes to rationalization. The last thing an autistic person is violent. They abhor violence. They are afraid of people who are violent. They crave love and attention, and they want to give love and attention. Now, having said that, does that fit the person, meaning the charges that he is now been placed with, or the charges that have been placed upon him? Does that fit his type of personality? No, it doesn't. Now, am I saying there's no way in God's green earth this kid could be responsible, or young man, I should say, could be responsible for this? I'm not saying that. But something smells here, and it ain't roses.
Right.
And I have a lot of, we both do. Okay, a lot of respect for Patel as being an upright, honest, because he has a badge now, cop. And I know Dan Bongino has never been anything but a hard-nosed cop, whether it was when he was working in New York City as NYPD, or when he was in the Secret Service, or now as deputy director of the FBI. This guy doesn't know how to walk anything but a straight line. So other than that, what can it be? And I point back to what you have said since maybe April, early May. And I took note of it when you said it, that both these guys may be over their heads. And this is one occasion that such a statement really works with me, because they've made this move of arresting this man based on evidence that was left for them, kind of like the burn bags. Okay, so again, being good cops, you have to go with the evidence that's presented, not the evidence you want to manufacture or the evidence you hope to find. So I think this is a setup. I'm not saying that the current FBI stinks, or that the investigators that were able to put the pieces of the puzzle together as it is currently stink or are dirty. But whatever evidence they went through, because based on everything I have read from 4 different sources. I've done the same thing you have done. I've watched the words come out of Jesse Waters' mouth. I've watched them talk about it on the 5. I've watched 2 of the hosts on Newsmax, and also One American News. And they're all buying into this, except for Jesse.
Right.
Jesse is asking the hard questions that need to be asked. And I just, look, Rudy, I don't think this kid is the one. I just don't. Maybe he's a patsy. Maybe somehow or other, whether he was cajoled into buying these things. I mean, do they have his fingerprints on the clock? Do they have receipts? I mean, they said he bought it.
Yeah, they do.
Nowhere have I read.
They do have receipts.
Recovered? Okay.
Right. So they said they not on the black powder, which is the most important ingredient, not on the kitchen timers, the analog kitchen timers that I don't even know if those are still made or where you would get something like that. Those kitchen, is that right? Yeah, maybe. But apparently he bought all the stuff from a store. He didn't buy it online, but he bought it using his own credit card. He walked around with his cell phone on. My issue is, I believe, and I forget who was airing it. I think it was Alex Jones, was airing clips from Dan Bongino before he became deputy director talking about this. And he is showing the 2 clips, which I think what he was on, and I might agree with here, that they're 2 different people. I don't think this kid planted the pipe bombs. Maybe he didn't. He's definitely a patsy. He's another young man, naive young man with mental issues that I think was
not mental issues, mental
deficiencies.
Mental issues to mean he's disturbed. He's not disturbed,
right? But
he has limitations,
right? But he could be easily manipulated. And
absolutely,
there was one bit of video that I didn't see until recently that obviously shows his face, shows it's a black man with glasses. He looks up and he adjusts his glasses. But as Dan Bongino pointed out, there's another scene where he's sitting on the park bench, and it's obvious that they blurred out the little bit of his face. They also messed around with the resolution of the video. And we know from the beginning that they were showing us edited clips that don't really show his face. Now, why would they do that? So I think this is another, organized plot of the state. There's no way you're going to get me to believe different, especially when this guy pops up. You know what I mean?
Right.
This guy seemed to
That's
be,
my point.
yeah, a backbencher that, oh, if they follow any leads, it's going to lead to this guy. It's not going to lead back to us. Um, People have to understand how intelligence operations work. You pull on a string, it's not always going to lead where you think it does. So,
Right.
yeah, I just don't buy it. I think it stinks. Um,
Now, he did admit, from what I saw, he did admit to this crime.
Yeah, he might have very well did it, but it wasn't a crime. I mean, the bombs didn't go off. You know what I mean? Was it an FBI person selling him the black powder? Did he get it in an envelope in a park? And they knew it wasn't going to go off, type of thing. Once they discovered the devices, there was no urgency to keep people away or to stand back or to rope it off or anything. They just kind of stood around, which means like they were in on it. Kamala Harris wasn't rushed away. Yeah,
none of this adds up.
right. There's no motive from this kid. I mean, he's a kid. He's a young man. There's no motive. Oh, he was upset about the 2020 election. Really? Why didn't he go to the rally? Did he go to the rally? Right? Did he?
Apparently not.
Right. I mean, a lot of it doesn't make sense. It's kind of like the
Because they have his phone pinging. They didn't say anything about him being at the rally.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't make any sense. You have Ray Epps, and how did you know it was going to be a riot? I mean, the only people that would know were the feds that caused the Fedsurrection. You got Ray Epps sending people into the Capitol. They have this pipe bomb planted that unleashes more investigative powers, not to mention sniper teams and all these other things. Once you find the weapons of mass destruction that were obviously presumed to be planted by MAGA people, it changes the whole, as far as the investigators are concerned, it changes the whole environment there.
Correct.
So I don't believe it. I think he's a patsy. Did he plant the pipe bombs? Maybe, but I thought he more than likely somebody got him to do it.
And that's the part of the story we're not hearing anything about.
Right.
We're not hearing how he attained the gunpowder.
Yeah.
Okay. We're hearing just enough so that people can point the finger at him, but not enough to show he had motive.
Yeah.
And he had ability, meaning skill, to actually build a bomb. Yeah. All we know is that someone who looks a lot like him, if it isn't him, planted that bomb.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's still, in my opinion, inert.
Yeah, that's loose language, a bomb. I mean, how do we really know? Both of them didn't go off. I mean, did he test them? How did he start building bombs? What was the purpose? It wasn't discovered. I mean, there are a lot of things. Plus, as you mentioned earlier, you have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino look like they're a deer in the headlights. Obviously, and don't forget that the FBI is an intelligence agency, and they're astute at psychological manipulation, profiling, et cetera, et cetera. So they're way ahead of the game as far as that's concerned. Propaganda, how they're going to sell it, getting this kid to do it. I'm sure it's not the first kid they got to do something bad. So, and
it won't be the last.
Right. And you might have missed, did you see the footage of him waving to the Capitol Police car?
I did not.
No, that's another thing. To me, that's a sign right there, is that he thinks he's a secret agent. And that's usually the motif they go with. They get some kid and they go, hey, you want to be a secret agent? Let's go, we're on a training mission or whatever. And he's out there waving at Capitol Police while he's carrying these devices in his backpack.
Hmm.
You know, why would you be so why would you be so apparent,
Obvious.
so obvious? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think there's more to this story. My, my concern is that they may not need enough evidence to convict this kid, and that concerns me
Yeah.
because then we'll never get to the truth.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is that if there's going to be a trial, we get to see all the evidence. So unless he dies mysteriously, like seems to happen a lot, then you never get to see the evidence.
Right.
If there's a trial, it's going to be made public. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks and months as far as that is concerned. Um, so I just saw Trump. He just gave a speech. He's going to be doing a tour going around the country touting affordability. So when you look at the waterfront here, you know, you look at prices just like everybody else does. You're pretty astute with economics. Uh, we know what's holding up the show here. I'm not going to give it away. What's your take on quote unquote affordability?
Well, you've done such a great job, and I think you need to continue doing that with regard to painting the full picture, that starting with the printing of funny money in 2020 and the printing of even more funny money in 2022 and 2023. And I don't want to bore your audience with macroeconomics, but the bottom line is what causes inflation? The printing of money, because when you put more money into the economy, everything you have, as you said, you have more dollars chasing the same amount of goods. That's what causes inflation, nothing else.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why when they finished taking us, it started with Wilson over 100 years ago, and it ended with Nixon in 1972 when he took us off the gold standard completely. We only had 10% of our currency in 1972 backed by gold. And they did that so that they could bring us to the point we're at now, where we're $38 trillion in debt. And every day that number is going up and up and up. So we have to deal with that. Besant, man, I love this guy.
Yeah, man.
He did such a great job with Mag. He talked about the 3 I's. Okay? Immigration, inflation, and what was the last one? There were 3 of them. And all 3 of them are what drove the cost of living up. Because when you bring as many as 25 million people into this country who can't take care of themselves, and you have the government, through our tax dollars, paying to house them. Think about that for a second. Suddenly, the amount of available housing now has to accommodate almost an additional 10% of a population. We have anywhere between 310 and 330 million people in this country, and they're now saying that as many as 25 million people invaded our country over the past 4.5 years. When you have that, well, what happens to the housing market? It dries up. It forces the price of housing up for Americans, not for the illegal aliens, for Americans. And then you have all these other pressures that were put on the economy, like shutting down conventional forms of energy, whether it was coal, natural gas, oil, whatever. When you do all of this, you can't do anything except further bury the American people through the force of inflation. So you have that, and Trump has to deal with all that this year. Now, it doesn't matter how much he touts, and I'm glad he was out there touting it tonight. affordability doesn't happen without the American people earning more money. Because once inflation has driven the cost of goods up, as you have repeated over the past 3 years, inflation, when you zero out inflation so that the economy is growing above and beyond what the rate of inflation is, that's when you enter the golden era, okay? Whether it was in 2018 or it happens in 2026. But the fact of the matter is, the box of Cheerios ain't going to go back to 2020 pricing. It ain't happening. It may go down a little bit, but at the very best we can hope for is that prices have now stabilized across the board, beginning with energy. You know, I say this to your audience all the time. What it costs for me to feed my beef, I have to use premium gas. I don't know what you're paying in Connecticut, but I can tell you this. What I'm paying for a gallon of premium for my behemoth is less right now. Matter of fact, it's over $2 less a gallon than what they're paying for regular in California, or for that matter, in New York State. Now, why is that? We're using the same oil. It's getting refined in the same plants. So why is it costing them more?
Taxes.
It's called taxes.
Yeah.
So you have a president who has, I mean, look, I love Ludnick, but Bessent is probably the smartest person in the room. He really is.
Yep.
Because every task he's been given, he's accomplished it. And when he went at Maggie, and he said that today's already Tuesday, on Sunday, she had no comeback. And so the problem we have to face is twofold. We have backstabbers in our party who, whether they say they want the president to succeed or they don't, they are not on the team. They're go along to get along. They don't want to ruffle the feathers of the base because they see what the base of the Democrats is doing to Schmucky Chucky. Okay, so they don't want to ruffle feathers, but they're not going to be out there beating the drum and saying to people, hey, look, in the words of Bill Clinton, I do feel your pain. And it's finally starting to happen. And keep in mind, when I say finally, we've only been turning the ship around for 10 months. The fact that you are now paying as much as $1.25, $1.50 less a gallon than you were 24 months ago, that alone is something to celebrate. It's not enough. It's nowhere near enough. But we are working on it. We are going to bring through upcoming policies when it comes to health care, we are going to bring the cost of insurance down. And part of the way you do that is what I think he touched on tonight. Not much, but it was a line that I caught. He's going to make it portable. Portability, meaning you and I, well, I'm going to be on Medicare in a couple of weeks. As much as I hate to say it, God bless America. Anyway, for those in your audience that are in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, who are being choked by Obamacare, one of the reasons why you're being choked is because of what people like you and I have been saying, going all the way back to 2009, when this disgusting confiscation of health freedom was taken away from the American people. I want to live long enough to piss on the grave of Tom Harkin, who said in 2010, after they got it passed, we have given the American people health care. And I screamed at the TV and I said, you motherfucker, you haven't given the American people anything except servitude. And that is exactly over the past 15, going on 16 years, what has happened. The government, and this is exactly why I don't like Medicare, the government dictates what your options are. Oh, yeah, you can pick from column A or column B or even column C. But you can't pick from D, E, or F because we're not going to put that into the healthcare system. So what is Trump saying? Trump is saying kind of what I kind of alluded to a month ago in our last conversation on air. You, the American taxpayer, you are going to be able to choose what type of medical insurance policy you want. And the subsidy is going to go directly to you. You are going to be given whatever is deemed necessary. And I'm using air quotes here because I have no idea how much. But the point being is, you know what, Eric, what the hell is his name? Eric. Anyway, he is a healthcare insurance mogul. And he said weeks ago, you know, the insurance companies like mine are getting rich because the government is feeding us. You're not deciding whether or not you want to do business with me. The federal government is telling you, if you need this type of coverage, whatever specific coverage you need, then the only option you have is me. And I've already told the federal government, in order for me to not only cover that specific individual who has certain needs, okay, it's going to cost me X number of hundreds of millions, if not billions, as an insurer to provide those medical service needs to that individual. And therefore, I can't sell him a policy for less than, pick a number, $10,000 a year.
Right, X.
Okay? Now, can the guy who's making $50, $60, even $70,000 a year, once he's paid his taxes, take 20% off of that $50K, and you're down to $40K. Now you have $40K in after-tax income, your actual disposable income. And you have to take 25% of that remaining money in order to cover yourself and your family for insurance, which, by the way, has deductibles. And a lot of them have high deductibles. Now, who determined that, Rudy? Oh, that's right. The Democrats did in 2010 and again in 2016 prior to the election. And now they're turning around and saying Trump's the bad guy for saying we need to kill Obamacare. We said it 15 years ago, and we're saying it now. Obamacare was an abomination foisted upon the American people so that those who either can't or won't pay for their own health care needs get coverage. Well, in order to do that, you got to spread the risk around. Okay, Mr. Insurance Man, how do we do that and still make your company profitable? Well, this is how we do it. You're going to subsidize people, and that directly to me. They never see it. That's not what's going to happen under the Trump plan. Now, we have to wait and see what that's going to be. In the meantime, people are screaming bloody murder, as they should.
Right.
Okay? But all of this is connected back to what we started talking about 10 minutes ago with regard to the cost of living and things being made affordable. Affordability. You know, because of the change in insurance laws here in the state of Florida, specific to real estate, at age 65, my income has dried up because the state government has decided that any property owner, it doesn't matter who, it could be an individual, it could be a corporation, doesn't matter who it is, anyone who owns improved land with a structure of some kind on it and has to pay insurance, they no longer can use the services of an attorney to help get them money when their insurance company refuses to pay their claim on their structure that was damaged by fire, flood, hurricane, vandalism, whatever. Now, imagine what's going to happen, because this is another thing about Obamacare. Imagine what's going to happen if these changes in health insurance are not created. You have people now that are denied care, especially old people. And that's the thing that we tried to tell people 15 years ago. The only way to control costs when the government is dictating health policy is to control costs. How do you do that? You have to ration care.
Yeah.
When, it's great when Trump said to the pharmaceutical companies, you're not going to get away charging whatever it is for an EpiPen. You can't charge $300 for an EpiPen anymore. You need to come back to the table and make sure it's actually affordable. And why is that? Oh, that's right. Because most Obamacare policies don't cover EpiPens. Not saying all, but some. Okay? And again, who's making those decisions for you, the individual? It's no longer you. It's the government.
Yep.
And so, same thing with me and how I earned my living as an expert witness. At age 65, guess what? I'm going back into construction. I haven't had to wear a tool belt in 25 fucking years. That's how I plan to earn my living for the next 5 years until I'm ready to hang up that tool belt.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it, but the government in the state of Florida has made it happen.
Yeah.
Same thing applies to healthcare. And until people have the ability to pick and choose whatever they want instead of what the government dictates there will be available, until that happens, costs are not going to go down. They're only going to go up. And why is that? Oh, that's right, because we got people like little Kimmy up there in Minnesota having people like you and me pay for the health care of illegal aliens.
Right.
From Somalia.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is why government has to get out of it.
Yeah.
The sooner government gets out of it, sooner prices won't necessarily come down, but they will at least stabilize.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to see.
Yeah, that's what see, this happened in the censorship arena also. And it's not just government. It's a curated choice is no choice. Because if you're having somebody deciding what you get to choose from, that's not a real choice. And so I think that's part of the problem with Obamacare. The other problem with Obamacare is obviously fraud, and that's been pointed out in several stories this week. And that also makes premiums more expensive. So let's go over to the fraud and so now the fraud apparently, the Somali fraud that ripped off COVID was apparently not $1 billion. Apparently it's $8 billion.
And growing.
And growing. Ilhan Omar keeps eating crow. And Tim Walz, apparently there was the governor of Washington might, but hasn't yet, canceled his fundraiser with the guest appearance of Tim Walz, because apparently even Ilhan Omar alluded to this on Face the Nation this week, that Tim Walz and the local government might bear some responsibility.
She's good at throwing all her teammates under the bus. I love it.
Well, there was
Tim's the culprit, but it's not.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it is Tim Walz, because Tim Walz, when the investigation, the tip of the iceberg actually appeared late in the pandemic, Tim Walz said, no, there's nothing to see here. What you're doing is racist. And actually, the attorney general of Minneapolis or Minnesota, was it
Minnesota?
Allison?
Yeah,
right.
Allison.
Right. He was
another criminal.
Right. He was looking into the fraud, though, and he bowed out of his investigation because of the lawsuit brought on by the very not-for-profit that was bilking the taxpayer out of these billions of dollars. So, um, anything that if the government's willing to pay out, that there's going to be someone waiting in the wings to figure out how to scam the money. And so,
When a state, and I'm using specifically Minnesota here, when Minnesota is only responsible, and I haven't verified this, but and I was listening to Fox News while I was out working earlier today, and I did not take note of who said this, but it was on Fox Business. And the guy said, the state of Minnesota is the liability, the financial liability of the state of Minnesota when it comes to Medicaid is only 30 cents on the dollar. Now, that's a lot when you're talking billions. Well, who's responsible for the other 70%? Rudy? Oh, that's right. You and me.
yeah.
And the other thing that was pointed out over the weekend, if you look at where these absorbed costs by the state of Minnesota and the federal taxpayer started to mushroom, when did it happen? After Omar was elected to Congress. It went from a manageable $250, $275 million a year to now, annually, it's either 1 or 2 billion. I want to say it's a billion, but people are throwing around the number of billion annually. So how did it get there? And why is it? It's constant. A lot of this money, not all of it, but a lot of this money seems to be concentrated within the Somali community. Why is that? Because people are being bribed by these slick operators, these fraudsters, who are coming to them. They're knocking on the door, or whether they find them on the street and they say, hey, look, put your name and all your information on this application, and I'll hand you $500 right now. Okay, where do I sign? Here you go. What was that $500 investment worth to the fraudster? Thousands.
Yep.
Multiply that times tens of thousands of people. I'm sorry, I wouldn't go that far, but thousands of people. Thousands of people within that community. And suddenly, the old phrase, billion here, billion there, suddenly you start talking about real money. And this is what's been happening right under the nose, especially Biden. But this actually does go back to the end of the first Trump administration. And if I'm not mistaken, people started raising their eyebrows to it then. And let's not forget all those state whistleblowers who brought this to the attention of the Walz administration. And what did they say? What you just repeated a couple of minutes ago. You're a racist.
Yep.
I'm a racist for pointing out where all this money is going? Well, that shut it down mighty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes from here, because this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's conspiracy. From Biden, the Biden administration appropriating the money, they borrowed $2 trillion more than they really needed. And then to friggin' throw that around like Daddy Warbucks, putting $7 billion in an EPA account that wasn't even didn't have use for the money. And Lee Zeldin found it. And more shelling out more billions to Somalis with a wink and a nudge. Here you go. Don't worry. You don't deserve the money, but you're going to get it anyway.
Look, I don't want to just pick on the Somalis. Okay, they're an easy target. This is going on in California. It's going on in New York.
Nope.
It's going on all over. And wait, You saw what Mondani said this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm rubbing my hands together in sweet anticipation of how quickly Nate Plinsky is going to show up on the top of the Empire State Building and say, follow me.
Yeah. Pretty soon, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And that brings us to our last subject here, illegal alien crime. So it seems like every day I open the newspaper and there's another illegal immigrant who killed somebody intentionally or unintentionally.
Illegal alien.
Illegal alien, right. That recently there was another drunk driver that killed an 8-year-old girl, and the stories go on and on and on. And now we have this person on the light rail in Charlotte, North Carolina again, who stabbed another passenger. And I'm not sure. I think the guy didn't die.
Yeah. Somebody said, a matter of fact, it may have been Trump who announced within the last 24 hours that this man passed away.
Oh, he did die. I know he was.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I know he was in critical condition. With several
critical but stable,
right?
Critical but stable.
Several stab wounds, and again, an illegal immigrant stabbed this guy. Man,
you know him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
the argument that people like you have to continue to make, and you do it all the time, and God bless you for it. The argument that people like us make is, look, it isn't that it's only an illegal alien. The argument should be, how and why was he allowed to be here in the first place? Explain that to this man's family, who, God forbid, if I'm correct, has to be put in the ground this week.
Yeah. Well,
he's never coming home again.
Yeah.
Because you let this, and this guy has a long record too, by the way.
Right. Let him out. It's not even that he's in the country. Let him stay here, but keep letting him out of jail. And that happens with even people that aren't illegal aliens. They have these long rap sheets and they just keep getting let out of jail. Just, it's like a ticking time bomb.
And for the life of me, I don't understand how this woman got reelected to the office of mayor again. And then you saw what she said. I'm going to try and quote her words exactly. She did provide remorse. I believe she was sincere. But then she followed it up by saying, the police department of Charlotte does not have jurisdiction over immigration policy. Now, my argument to those residents of Charlotte is, when are one of you going to go to the next city hall meeting, take your 5 minutes, and demand this woman resign from office, and then let the person behind you standing in line demand she resign from office? Because to make such a hideous statement, you know what? You're right. It is not the jurisdiction of the police department of any city to determine the legal or illegal status of any individual who may or may not be a citizen of this country. That's what we have an immigration force for. But it is your obligation as the mayor of your town to see to it your police department fully cooperates and assists, I always say INS, ICE,
yeah,
and border patrol, when they are in your town, because they know who they're coming to look for. It is not your job, nor should you be allowed legally to stand up on your soapbox and say, we are not going to help the federal government come find you. Because your allegiance is not with people who invaded your community or our country. Your allegiance is first to the Constitution of the United States of America, and secondly, to the people who you are supposed to serve and represent as mayor of your town, no matter which town or city
Right.
it is.
Mostly
And if you
voters.
fail at that, then you should either be removed from office, or if we can prove you aided and assisted the escape of wanted criminals who invaded our country, then you need to be brought up on federal charges.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, you're an accomplice.
You're worse than an accomplice. It's the reason why I say it's worse than being an accomplice is part of a conspiracy. Okay, fine. But your job is to protect the people that voted you into office, not place the needs, wants, and desires of people who invaded your community above that of the people who are paying your salary. And that's why I'm saying, where are all these people who are paying taxes to live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and why aren't they marching into the city chamber? Because some cities, it's every week that there is a meeting. Go in there, and if you have to take up all the time, do it.
Yeah.
If it means nothing else is talked about week after week or month after month until they cry uncle.
Yeah. The soft on crime policies are not compassionate. And you have two confluences: illegal immigration, which they're acting like sanctuary cities and not assisting federal law enforcement, which is under the supremacy clause, they have to. Otherwise, it's tantamount to obstruction. Even Mamdani, what he's doing in New York City, telling people how to avoid ICE. Kristi Noem just recently just said that could amount to obstruction.
Good.
At the very least, you're accessory to whatever crimes these people commit. If you're not putting them in jail, because if they're felons, first of all, if they happen to be felons, they're not going to vote for you anyway. Or if they're illegal aliens, they're not going to vote for you anyway. So the voters, people that voted for you, or the people that are eligible to vote, should be the people you're protecting. So I know you have one more thing you might want to talk about here before we close out. Here,
I'll only cover it briefly because we're running late. I'd like for your viewers to memorize these two names, Randy and Chad Miller. This is a father and son team who was forced, just like General Flynn was all those years ago, into admitting a crime they never committed because they didn't have the money to fight against the Biden DOJ. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this father and son team in Arizona who built an amazing sports complex that was able, and they had, I think, 29 ball fields. They had a huge arena where, matter of fact, and this is what brought the Biden DOJ down on them. They had a huge fundraiser for Donald Trump in 2022 in their facility. And Biden didn't like that. So what happened to them had to do with the name Vanguard. Does that mean anything to you? I think it does. Vanguard, according to the story I read, and I provided it to you. I gave you a link to read the story when you get a chance, Rudy. Vanguard was one of two major hedge funds that was going to partner with this family. They were the reason why the family was able to look for and receive bond money to build this incredible facility. Okay. And then they reneged on their contract. And because of that, the facility was unable to pay its loans because they didn't have the funding they were promised. And that is why the entire program collapsed. And the DOJ under Biden went after them for fraud. And they didn't they're not Donald Trump. They don't have an endless supply of money to stand up and say, fuck me, no, fuck you. So they had a choice. Admit to a lesser crime. Now, the father is 70 years old. He's being sent to a maximum security prison. And there is a movement now around the country asking people to donate whatever they can, but most importantly, to sign the petition for Trump to pardon these two men.
Yeah.
Now, I went and very quickly did a Google to see the other stories, because this was only one story, okay? It's not the story. It is a story on these two men. And the only things I could find in the Google search were from all the lame brain media and from the Department of Justice. And, of course, they were painted in the worst possible light possible. And so imagine at age 70, this man, I mean, he's out on bond. He's I don't know if he's completely bankrupted or if just the corporation they formed is bankrupted, but he's going through a max security. Now, why is a 70-year-old man who was, until 2022, a very successful businessman his entire life, why is he a man who, if you want to call it white-collar crime, why is he being sent to a maximum security prison? So, when you get a chance, Rudy, read that story.
Will do. What are the guys? What are the guys' names again?
Randy and Chad Miller.
And are they Arizona? That's what I thought. Yeah, I did do a cursory over that article. It's par for the course. You know, Obama did the same thing. Anybody conservative, and of course, after January 6th, the Justice Department of Biden went after every granny, every uncle, every grandpa, everybody that didn't deserve to be arrested, and left the instigators alone. And of course, Benny Thompson and the January 6th committee then destroyed all their evidence. But we do have evidence that surfaced regarding the January 6th pipe bomber, that the Biden's FBI knew about him in 2021 and did nothing about this guy, Brian Cole.
Correct.
If he is the actual bomber, I mean, he didn't really bomb anything. He put some devices that he thought were pipe bombs, and I still doubt that they were active. All right, we're going to leave it. Yep, go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, we don't even know if he was told, "Oh, don't worry, they won't blow up." It's just to set a story. It's just to get the federal government to pay attention.
Yeah, it's a training exercise, whatever it is. It's a training exercise. They did the same thing with the Boston bombing. That's a story for another day. We're going to leave it there tonight, Perry. Thanks for joining me today. Episode 130 of Tuesdays with Perry. Thanks again for joining me, my brother. We'll do this again next week, and we won't wait a month this time.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man.
Rudy, have a great evening, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. See you, man. Thank you. Bye. There goes Perry. Tuesdays with Perry. Episode 130. Can't believe we've done 130 episodes. So join us next week for another episode of Tuesdays with Perry, where we talk about current events and all things political, all things Trump. Or join me tomorrow, 10 a.m., every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. live stream on Rumble. Our Tuesdays with Perry live stream are usually on Tuesday, 9:15. So join us then. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. for joining Perry and I for this edition of Tuesdays with Perry. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.